Hey guys, it's Lopal here with another video, and today we're going to be going over Yuumi Sivir versus Twitch Sona. Now, Yuumi's kind of a new champion coming out, so I'm going to tackle a couple of introductory elements to this champion in case you aren't quite familiar with this champion. Yuumi is a new champion that's come out with an attachment ability, which is your W ability, which allows you to attach to people and it enhances your abilities. On top of that, because of the fact that she's untargetable in this attachment element, she plays significantly different than other champions. As you can kind of see on your screen, we're actually running heal and exhaust. The reason why you don't take flash on this champion is you usually spend most of the time attached to somebody. You're also not going to be building boots on this champion either, as your mobility is directly tied to attaching to somebody. Also, because of this, you can also attach to somebody and teleport into lane, as you'll kind of see in this video. So before we jump into the video, we're going to be introducing you to the Rune Setup. So the most standard Rune Setup that I've kind of settled on right now is Summon Airy. It just allows you to get reasonable damage in, plus if you're jumping in between everybody, it also allows you to proc a lot of shields and synergizes well with Atheans. Afterwards, Mana Flow Band, so we don't run out of mana and so we can constantly Q poke. Transcendence to round out that CDR for when you're building towards all of your itemization. And then Gathering the Storm. Afterwards, we're going to be running Secondary Precision, which is abnormal for most spellcasters, but since you're not trading or auto attacking quite frequently on this champion, Biscuits or maybe going the resolve tree with maybe conditioning or bone plane doesn't seem that great. Right now, a lot of people like running Presence of Mind and Cut Down, as you can kind of see in front of you. This is just to get a reduction on your ultimate and make sure you never run out of mana. Plus, Cut Down is really good because of the fact that since you have the lowest base HP in the game and you pretty much never build any HP on this champion, it gives you the most efficient extra damage, and its numbers seem to convert to that quite well. So without further ado, let's jump into the video. So the primary thing that I want to introduce to you, as you can kind of see when we're entering lane, is the attach mechanic plus Q. So if you don't know, you have to attach your teammate in order to get access to this guided missile element. It's mostly all of your poke damage in laning phase, so making sure that you're attached whenever you're shooting the Q is the most efficient way to not only do more damage, but have a higher level of accuracy with your Q. Now your Q needs to be in the air for 1 second to actually start doing damage, but it also slows when you hit that, to kind of give you an introductory element to this champion. So as you can kind of see right here, we're entering lane, and I'm already attached to my teammate and shooting the Q. Now one thing to know is the Q has turn radius, much like everything else that turns. So because of that, you actually have to curve it around minions. And another thing to note too is it does not explode. So you have to hit the exact target, and if you hit minions instead of the player, it won't splash and deal damage. Another thing to note too is just keeping track of your passive. As you can kind of see here, I'm constantly walking up and fishing for auto attacks to proc Spell Thieves and proc my passive. This passive gives you mana and it gives you a shield. If after you generate the shield, you attach to your teammate, then it gives your teammate the shield instead, and it has a quite powerful AP ratio. This is kind of like the enhanced mechanic of your champion, as in you want to be jumping in and out of your teammate and constantly auto-attacking and re-shielding your teammate. As you can kind of see from this laning phase, a lot of it's going to be constantly trading where we jump in and out after keeping track of the Q cooldown. Ideally, what you want to be doing is walking around, potentially proccing your passive as much as possible, and then whenever your Q comes out, as you can kind of see right here, you're constantly shooting rockets at people. Sometimes you're going to end up missing while you're practicing this, but the best way I suggest to be shooting it is around minions. So kind of at a curvature of either up or down through it. Now, if you're ever playing against this champion, the best way to dodge it is to just be constantly stepping in the minions. As you can see right here, anytime that the AD carry is not next to the minions, it becomes really easy for me to just hit the Q skill shot and constantly harass. We're also walking forward and constantly trading auto attacks, but making sure that we stay in range of W. As you can see, we do a lot of damage anytime we hit the Q, and we're going to be weaving in autos every time we're in range. Another thing to note too in the early stages is it's okay to lose some HP for Spell Thieves and auto attack trades because of the fact that you're not going to be taking much damage once you're attached to your teammate. So as you can kind of see, every time that the W and Q is off cooldown, I'm constantly jumping back into my AD carry and shooting Qs. This is just to get the constant guided missile proc and do extra damage in that regard. Since I saw the Sona constantly trying to channel back, I'm just doing my best to keep her in lane as much as possible, since it's a lot more difficult for me if I let her reset and not be poked. As you can see right here too, you can kind of shoot the Qs around minions and hit people from behind. So getting used to and practicing the guided missile is going to be the majority of what you want to be practicing in this laning phase. Another thing to note too is since you are constantly auto attacking, it also gives you mana back. You just want to be using your heal as much as possible to kind of keep keep your teammate topped off whenever mana isn't a concern. So as you can kind of see right here, since I don't have like a good angle, I'm just making sure that I'm outside, not stacked on my AD carry, and looking for any harass that I possibly can with my passive. Once I get the passive off, we're jumping into our teammate, shooting the Q, which slows them, and then just giving my teammate the heal to give him the bonus movement speed, which allows us to force the heal out. A lot of the laning phase on Yuumi in the early stages is just poking and making sure that you're holding pressure in the laning phase, not getting harassed too much out, and then just TPing back. One of the added benefits is that you can TP with your teammate, so it feels really good in that regard. Now, one thing to note is the concept of trapping. Now, whenever you're in circumstances like this where you've actually pushed the wave into the turret, but the enemy laner is in low HP, a lot of times what I like to do is do a thing called trapping, where you pretend like you're backing but you're actually in a brush, and you're just looking for extra pressure. One thing is though, I mess up this, and I should have shot my Q all the way to the right hand side and swung it all back around. That way I could hit the AD carry. What ends up happening here is I shoot the Q incorrectly, not far enough out, and actually the Sona blocks it. Because of this, we get a reasonable trade and force out the ignite, and I trade my heal in that regard just to keep ourselves topped off. Since our jungler is down here too, I'm just constantly auto-attacking, shooting Qs, and making sure that we're keeping a harass in the lane. As you can see, our jungler is behind us. One drawback of a champion like Yuumi though is she doesn't help push very well. Because of a good flash by our jungler, we force the flash out of the AD carry, and we have the wave sort of pushing towards us. Because of the fact that our AD carry is running TP, since I can take heal and another combat summoner, I order my AD carry to reset with me. The most important thing is just taking advantage of your TP timings in the early stages and not staying in lanes where you're out of resources. Now, one thing to note in this situation is Dork Seal is actually one of the best items on this champion, since you're mostly a leech and don't usually put yourself in dangerous locations. And as you can kind of see from this, once you attach to your teammate, if he teleports or portals anywhere, you appear with him. So most of the time I recommend, especially if you're duo with someone, to constantly have your AD carry take teleport. In situations where you don't want to take teleport, you can opt into the barrier for all ends, and that's completely fine too. So one thing to note too is whenever you're trading or harassing under the turret, to be mindful of the fact that the turret will hit you even if you're attached to somebody. Usually you're invulnerable to most everything, but one thing to note is that if you ever hit someone with a spell and they're under the turret, you'll actually rip turret aggro. So we're just constantly auto-attacking and trading as much as possible whenever we can. Kind of explaining some of the trade patterns is as follows. It's really important that you're not always permanently attached to your teammate. So as you can kind of see right here, my Q is on cooldown, so I pop out and I'm just going to be auto-attacking whoever I can. This is just to deal extra damage and make sure that there were 2 targets to be taking damage instead of 1. If you're always sitting permanently in your teammate, you're playing this champion wrong. You always want to be bouncing between in and out based on your W cooldown. There's also, if you don't know, a bar indicator above your W to show you when your W is off cooldown. And what I mean by that is when you W into someone and you attach, you can detach immediately. But in the early stages, there's about a 10-second cooldown. But there's an indicator or a bar above it that it shows you when it's up again. You usually want to play around with this, that way you can jump in and out and avoid danger. As you can see right here, since my Q and W are on cooldown, I'm just constantly auto-attacking. The second my Q is off cooldown though, I immediately reattach, shoot the Q at them, and jump back out and dump heals in my AD carry. This is basically just constantly dancing between in and out for your attach form. That way you can be optimizing the amount of damage that you possibly can. Plus on top of that, you'll be proccing your shield and mana passive on that. It's also a great way to keep constantly getting Spell Thief stacks too. Now, one drawback of this champion is she is quite terrible at helping push. So just auto attack and Q as best you can and just get it to the turret as fast as possible. Since I don't feel like there's any danger here, I stay for a little extra wave just to get my Spell Thieves on cooldown to generate some extra income. Afterwards, we just use our E for bonus movement speed and we get the heck out of there. So on this reset, since I'm not taking too much damage, I decided to just sit in the base and wait for an amplifying tome. As much damage as I possibly can and lead off to my next item is pretty much what I am focused on. Since I only really jump out when I want to be auto-attacking to proc my shield, I don't feel like I'll take too much damage, plus I can always use the E to heal me. And now that we've re-entered lane, we immediately jump onto somebody and we look for more Qs. One thing to note too, if you're ever with a duo partner, and when people start getting better at the champion, the Q range is the center of the teammate you're attached to. So anytime you possibly can, try to communicate with your AD carry to walk forward anytime you shoot Qs if they can. That way, they can always help you extend the range and have more opportunities to curve the spells and hit people. Now, since our dual lane is missing, we're just constantly pinging that he's missing, and we want to make sure that we're checking the brush before we walk into it, so I use the Q there just in case they might be standing there to trap me. Pretty much at this point in time, it's relatively concluded that they've completed the dragons you've kind of seen right here, so we don't want to step too far forward until we've seen where they come from lane. Constantly standing in brushes and just masking where we're standing is the ideal scenario for this situation. Since my Q and W are off cooldown once again, we just jump back into our AD carry and hit another Q. One thing to note though is their support is missing right now, so we don't want to play too far up in case they're trying to look for a trap. Especially indicating that, as you can see right here, the jungler is on the top side, so we aren't going to get any reinforcements if we do get into a fight. Constantly poking and harassing is going to be our best bet. Now, we do spot the jungler now, so it gives us more of a freedom to just constantly trade and look for fights. Because of the huge chunk on the AD carry, I'm going to walk forward and actually use my ultimate right here, thanks to the flash that we forced out earlier. Using my exhaust afterwards, I'm able to lock him down and then jump into my teammate and hit Q. One mistake that a lot of people make is feeling like you always need to be attached to your teammate at all points in time. So as you can see right here, the trade has happened and the AD carry is less than half HP. Knowing that the flash is down and that we've just spotted the jungler, that's kind of our cue to go in. So because of that, I just immediately activate the ultimate. After 3 ticks, by the way, the ultimate will snare the opponent. By not stacking on my teammate too, it makes it a lot more difficult for the Sona to choose between who to ultimate. Because of that forces the Sona ultimate onto my AD carry, which he does a good job of spell shielding. Once that happens, because I don't want my AD carry to die, and I'd like to preserve my heal if I can, I use the exhaust on the AD carry so he can't turn. On top of that, if you notice right here, the Sona is now stacked on top of my root. Because of that, the root also hits her, and immediately afterwards my AD carry is getting low. Since I have all of my spells up, what I do now is I just jump into my teammate, pop the heal, and then we just shoot a point blank range Q just to get a little bit extra damage and guarantee that second kill. The most important thing to take away from that fight is just don't always be afraid to use your spells when you're not inside your teammate or attached to them, as sometimes that actually can ruin the angle in which you have it. Afterwards, we just push it into the turret. I get 3 auto attacks on the turret just to get the plate and the extra gold. Then I walk to my teammate and jump right into him. Reminder that also it works like Zyra, where if you jump inside them, they also back with you. Thanks to all the excess gold that we have, we're able to start building towards that Athene's right here. So I opt into double fairy charm, the no magic mantle, and the fiendish right there. Now, sometimes your teammates are assholes and don't let you jump into them to run back, and sometimes you just have to run back yourself. Constantly recommend to just expend one of the charges of the E over and over again just to get the movement speed to get into lane. Since we see that the Sona is mid, this gives me the opportunity to kind of walk up the river and just dump some wards down while my AD carry pushes. I'm not needed for the push as I don't push very fast, and the experience is no longer that much necessary, so I'm just clearing wards down and getting vision wherever I can. Now, since that pink ward is there, but we died in mid lane, I don't think I can contest it, so I just wrap back around and make sure that I'm not attacking the turret to just get spell thief stacks. This also helps us push the turret and work on another plate or two. Now, as you can kind of see on our pink ward, we saw Kha'Zix coming up, so we know that this is not a 2v3 in the sense of the jungler interacting, but a good teleport by the Kindred, and they jump on top of my teammate. My primary goal is just to run away and get to the turret since I didn't have anyone to jump to. Fortunately for us, our jungler plus our mid laner collapsed, and they're able to help fight. One thing to note too is once you get into a chasing situation, always encourage your teammates to constantly chase when you are playing Yuumi, since once the Q is in range for 1 second in the air, it'll start slowing people, especially if you invest a lot of points. The situation kind of is as follows, wanting to break it down and kind of dial it back. Number 1, we've identified the jungler as top, so this can't be a situation where the jungler is ganking. And on top of that, our Kindred is moving down, plus our Sylas has teleport. The wave is crashed in. Kennen TP's onto the side, and we're just using our ultimate to just create space and slow everyone down. A good job by the Sona to use all her spells to dodge my ultimate, and unfortunately our R is no longer useful in this situation since we've redirected ourselves in flash. This is not anyone's real fault, but sometimes it happens, and why I recommend usually holding onto your ultimate or ulting and then jumping out. That way you can reposition it, that way you're always guaranteeing the slow. Now after that, we force the Kennen ultimate out, and a good job by our AD carry dipping to the right, just giving us more space and ways to kite out. This forces basically the Kennen to flash, and the Twitch is now opening up on us. Pretty much all 3 ultimates have been used, and we actually have a numbers advantage. Sometimes in these situations, you just want to get the heck out. This player is already dead, and there's nothing I can really do about that. So because of that, I just make a dash to the turret. I decided to run this way rather than walk up to the top side because of the fact that I felt more safe running next to the turret. On top of that, Kennan's used all his spells for the most part, so I knew he wouldn't have the damage. Thanks to the fact that they're out of resources in the collapse by my teammates, they're able to basically score up both those kills, and then afterwards we're able to chase them down. Anytime you're in a winning position, you always want to encourage your teammates to chase, just because the Q, once it's airborne for 1 second, will start slowing. Especially since I invest a lot of points into it, it's very powerful in terms of damage and slowing elements. Anyways guys, that's it for this Yuumi video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. Peace.